So today I'm going to talk about scientific literacy within the church. This will include how science and religion seem to get along and the ideas on both sides and how they often conflict, but what we need to do in the situations when it's hard to find an answer. So let's get started. There were different people in the early days of Christianity. Some examples of these are Aquinas or Augustine or even Galileo that really tried to combine science and religion. Now, for example, Augustine himself did not believe that creation, like the creation days, the creation story that we first imagine, the 7 days that we would think of, he didn't believe them to be a literal term necessarily, but more as figurative. And so this idea being that creation, people that believe in creation and say this is one reason why we can't believe in different things in science, would say that there was a literal 7-day interpretation of creation, and so evolution could not have occurred, and I'll get into more of that later. But Augustine said that it could have been figurative. Some other thinkers like this would include Aquinas, like I mentioned already, who said that God's existence is self-evident, and we can see this through everyday things. This relates a lot to Galileo's two-book model, which includes the book of nature as well as the book of religion. Now, the two-book model of Scripture, we learn about God through both nature and religion. And nature book is always open to people, and we can learn through this in the same way that we would learn about religion, say through the Bible. Galileo, however, did say that it is people with specific training that could read the book of nature. And so it was hard for churches to see this way because it's hard to say, like I don't have this training and I can't really relate to this kind of thing that Galileo is talking about. Whether this is true or not true, this was an idea that often did shape the early church, and so churches have begun to shy away from science in recent years. It was something that was tried to be reconciled, science and religion at the beginning, but now it's beginning to be harder and harder. So when I say the word evolution, churches go crazy, and it's not necessarily because it's necessarily a bad thing, but there is a stigma around evolution that has been hard for the church to reconcile. Evolution is an idea by Darwin, and again, when I say Darwin, Christians go crazy, but it's not necessarily that way. Evolution is just how things change over time, and so there's macroevolution and then there's microevolution, and macroevolution would be the idea that we would have evolved from apes or that kind of thing, and Christians have a hard time looking at that. That's where we get the young earth creationists who would say that the earth is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old, while many scientists who believe in evolution would say that there was a Big Bang maybe just over 4 billion years ago, like 4.6 billion years ago. And so there's both of these ideas, and to reconcile them has been very hard. The fact is that there's not very many scientists that believe in a young earth. However, there are some that do. According to BioLogos, the scientific community, almost anyone who claims to not believe in evolution is misled or deliberately trying to mislead. That's a pretty strong statement, but that's just how many scientists really do believe in creationism. There's not very many. There are some arguments against this, and one is the fossil record that creationists try to use to argue their point. Authors like Ken Ham or Bill Nye have gone at this same thing. Bill Nye says that, for example for this point, that drowning animals would have all been trying to swim up to the top of the water, but we find the fossils all in the same layer, and this doesn't make sense with a worldwide flood. How is this possible? How does this make sense? Now, Ken Ham, who is arguing this point, says that the sandstone is supposed to be 10 million years old, but we assume things about the past that we can't prove. Now, this is also true. He went on to say that you can never prove the age of the earth, and that's just how it is. There will be arguments, but they can't be proven. And so there are these arguments on both sides, but nothing really will ever be able to be specifically proven and for everyone to get a side, or on the same side rather. There are other issues in science that really try to pull apart, for example, global warming. We hear about all the time, but where are we supposed to stand on it? Another thing that we could talk about would be abortion. And like, how do we as Christians deal with that, and where are we supposed to be standing in it? I'm not going to get into those topics, but those are things that have been trying to pull on both sides of the Christian community. Again, we must remember that the belief in science isn't life or death. What really matters is what we believe about Christ and how we really believe we can be saved. And this is the true point that we need to make. Now, it is important to know what we believe as Christians so that when people come and ask us, we will have an answer. I'm going to the ministry and I need to know what I believe so that I can be there and I can explain to the people if they ask what I believe. But it's not something that I specifically need to really address all the time, although I do feel it should be addressed more than it is addressed now. Oftentimes we ignore the fact because it's a touchy subject, but science and religion, I think if it was talked about more in the church, would really have a better bonding, and there would be a place for both. I love it when a community in a church is able to say, I accept the science and I accept the religion. And it's a beautiful thing when they can come together in a peaceful way and accept ideas and have an open mind. It's super important to have an open mind in the church and not just say, this is what is true and this is what I believe and that's how it is. But rather be open to new ideas, even though they may not change your ideas. We must be open to what other people are talking about, and we need to listen to them. This is really big for pastors, but also for the lay people in the church. We can't be closed-minded, like I was saying. We must be open and just really be accepting. Dr. Huddleston was talking in class earlier this year about how he has people at his church that are willing to listen to him, and he's willing to listen to them, and they're sharing their ideas, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And that should be how it is in all churches and in the Christian community as a whole. Show love. That's what we're supposed to do. And I think that this in the church can be looked over when it comes to science. Science has the ability to really show off God's miraculous talent. For example, the black hole that was just discovered just a few weeks ago. It's amazing, and we can say, wow, like God created that, and we can bring this idea of science into religion and say that God is seriously amazing and awesome. And if we can bring those two things together through everything that we do within the Christian community and in the scientific community, I think there will be a natural bonding of the two, both science and religion, a lot easier than just, looking at it as, well, that's a scientific discovery, but is it really true? And being skeptical of different things. So, in conclusion, I'm personally still searching as to where I fit in on the whole creation scientific idea. I was brought up as a young earth mindset, with that mindset, but I'm searching, and I think that is something important, that we can't really just relate what our parents have taught us to what we believe necessarily, but really find what we think is truth. Like I said earlier, the focus on this is not what truly matters, but what truly matters is where we are with Christ. However, it is important to have these ideas and these thoughts pretty well where we think we know where we stand. But however, keep that open mind. It's exciting. These two can come together and it'd be a beautiful thing. And so I'm excited to see where my journey takes me, and I hope that you're able to take the two, both science and religion, and combine them both in a beautiful fashion. Thanks.